This is Music, and this is episode 4 of Maid of Steel. Welcome to episode 4 of Maid of Steel, a series of videos where I go through my collection of Band-Maid releases, physical and digital, and just talk about them. So these are not reaction videos. Today we're going to have a look at Just Bring It. But first, a recommendation. Today's recommendation is Maximum the Hormone's Tsume 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 /F. This is a double A-side single, so it just has 3 songs on it. Now, Band-Maid are, of course, famous for, dressing as maids and, having a theatrical approach to things. But they're also praised for mixing and matching lots of different, elements from different rock genres and sort of combining that into their own brand of hard rock, and it's all very seamless. Maximum the Hormone do the same thing. They're just much more extreme in terms of the genres they draw on. So this is everything from extreme metal all the way to disco and bubblegum pop, and it's all very seamless as well. The core style, I would say, is a mix of groove metal, hardcore punk, and also funk rock. Yeah. Tsume 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 was the first song I ever heard by Maximum the Hormone. And I was sold the first time I heard it. And these are, by the way, Maximum the Hormone is one of my favorite bands. It combines extreme metal, like really dissonant chords, really aggressive drumming, harsh vocals like death growls and death grunts, with the chorus is quite melodic. I would say it's kind of melodic punk, hardcore punk that's melodic with a very catchy, sing-along, friendly vocal style melody. And there's some funk rock elements as well, and some almost like pseudo sort of Latin, South American beats going on. It's a very cool song, very catchy, very artistic in a way. It comes across very, very avant-garde. F is more of a aggressive hardcore punk song, and Kill All the 394, that's the last song, is more of a melodic punk song. But Tsume Tsume Tsume, a great, almost avant-garde, extreme metal meets punk meets lots of other things song. And Marty Friedman actually covered Tsume Tsume Tsume. So if you like your groove metal, if you like your extreme metal, if you like your hardcore punk, and you feel like you want to challenge yourself a bit, certainly check this one out. This is great stuff. So let's get to the Band-Maid release. Just Bring It. If we just do some collector's nerdery, it's the JPU Records version I have. And check out this. I love this cover artwork, by the way. It combines the cutesy with the edgy, which I think characterizes their music as well. The back just looks like this of the booklet. Very simple in terms of the layout. You have the lyrics in Japanese, and then sort of halfway through, and I think this might be specific to the JPU Records version, you have the lyrics also transliterated into Romanji and also translated into English. And that's pretty much, what the booklet kind of looks like. The disc itself looks very nice visually, right? You got the roses, the flowers. They also sort of like giving each other a flower or something here. You got that theme going on here, and it has almost like a gothic feel to it, the disc. And the back is also pretty simple. So visually, the cover artwork is brilliant. The rest is very simple, but it works. So that was just the collector's nerdery. Now, if we compare these two, this is the previous one. Now, Just Bring It is the first full-length album. In my head canon, it's the 4th album, but it's the first full-length album. It was preceded by 3 mini-albums, and this was the one that came just before. The style is, I mean, it's the same style, but there are some differences, for sure. This one was, if you remember, if you watched the video, this one was focused a lot on rock and groove. There was a lot of groove on it. Not a lot of pop punk, not a lot of emo. The big catchy choruses had been sort of, they took a kind of like the back seat and were replaced with more sort of rock belting choruses that were equally catchy and big, but just different. The guitar tone was quite heavy on this one, and the lead guitarist, Kanami, she did some pretty cool stuff on this one, but she was also kind of still holding back, I think. On this one, the Kanami train has arrived. Now, there's still a lot of progression going on between this one and the more recent stuff, I would say, but here it has arrived. She's giving herself space and place to flourish, and she does some pretty cool, almost like technically advanced in places, guitar solo stuff, some almost like shreddy stuff, but she never goes ego, because this is not an ego band, this is a band. But the Kanami train has arrived. The guitar tone is not as heavy, it's a bit more twangy, I think. And the emo and pop punk elements have returned. And this one is also a bit more melancholic. I mean, Band-Maid are known for making like feel-good music and upbeat music. And at the end of the day, that also applies to this one. But it is a tad more melancholic, I would say. One is also an important kind of like milestone in their discography, in addition to being the first full-length album. It's also the first album where they have the majority of the songwriting credits. So let's actually go through the songs one by one. It opens up pretty strong, I think, with Don't You Tell Me, which is an upbeat hard rocker, but it's still quite melancholic. So it sets the sort of the tone immediately. It has a pretty cool chorus. I would say it's more of a rock belter chorus than sort of a big chorus, but it works, it's catchy, it's memorable, you can sing along. And there's an epic guitar solo in the breakdown, so yeah, immediately the Kanami train has arrived. So a pretty strong opener. It's followed by Puzzle, which has a heavy opening, but the verse is kind of mellow, so there's an interesting dynamic going on there. This one has some great, vocal melodies. I mean, all the songs have, but this one, I would say in particular, and some great drum work. Again, all the songs have great drum work, but it's kind of outstanding in this one. And there's some nice lead guitar work overall. I would say the second verse is a bit more dynamic than the first verse, so there's still the mellowness is still there, but there's a bit more dynamicity to it. And there's just another nice guitar solo here. And there's a sort of the main riff of the song is pretty cool. It is pretty groovy. So the groovy style is still here. It's followed by a song that on some versions, the one I bought on iTunes is called a Moratorium, but here might be difficult to see. It's rendered in Japanese, so I don't know if it just says Moratorium or whatever, but this is a very good song. Probably one of my favorite songs on the album. It's an all-out hard rocker, but it has some nice funky bits, especially in the bass part. And I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, but the overall sort of drumming style is a bit Motorhead-ish. It's like the Overkill song, just like steady double bass drum, and it's very nice. It fits the song very well, and it sort of takes it into like metal territory. There is very awesome, I would say, hard rocking, sort of just the main guitar riff, really like that. And a cool bridge that has a nice sing-along, kind of like, choir. It's like big, adds like sort of an epic feel to it in a way because of the choir, I guess the vocal harmonies, but they're nice to sing along, you remember them. And there's a really heavy breakdown, another awesome guitar solo, and the chorus is just brilliant here. So this is where they go for the more big, sort of catchy choruses. So a very, very nice song, Moratorium, probably one of my favorite songs, one of the more metallic songs as well. It's followed by a song called YOLO, and I know that might sound like a bit of a dumb title, but it's a pretty good song. It's quite melodic, quite melancholic, and it has a bit of a, I don't know if you guys know, I mean, I'm not saying they were inspired by this band, that's just my frame of reference. A band called Mew that in the early 2000s were known for, at least in Denmark, they're a Danish band. They're known for making really sort of melancholic alternative rock with a progressive feel to it, but some really great melodies in the chorus and a really strange kind of like high-pitched singing style, but it's just, you know, it all comes together very well. I get a bit of the same vibe, not the same style, but just the same vibe on this YOLO song, which is very interesting. And I also maybe get a bit of a Coheed and Cambria vibe, and again, this is just my frame of reference. I'm not saying they were inspired by Coheed and Cambria, but I just get this sort of a vibe from those two bands, sort of the more melancholic, yet kind of very catchy and melodic style. There's a nice little guitar solo in this song too. So YOLO, the title might seem a bit silly, but it's actually a pretty good song. It's followed by a song called Cross, and I think this is one of the songs that they didn't write themselves. I think it's written by somebody called Nora. I don't know who that is. It's another melancholic song. It has some nice vocal melodies in it, and I feel like this is one of the songs that has some very, very clear pop punk influences. The chorus is kind of like a nice sing-along chorus, and then there's a groovy riff in the bridge. So it's a very, you know, it's a pretty good song. It's followed by another song also written by, I think, the same songwriter Nora, called Opads. And this one has a bit of a, you know, 2000s kind of adolescent US pop punk rock kind of vibe to it, you know what I mean? And I think this is a Miku song. I think Miku does the vocals here. It has some good drumming on it, and the chorus is nice, and there's a really good guitar solo on it. But I have to admit, this is Opads. It's one of the songs on this album that catches my interest a bit less than the other songs do. And you cannot avoid that when you have an album that has like 13 songs on it, right? Cross and Opads are good songs, but they appeal to me less than a lot of the other songs do. And I'm not dunking on these two songs. Just, you know, I'm sure you can all recognize this. You have your favorites and you have they're good, but not as good as my favorites. You know what I mean? It's followed by a song that certainly is among my favorites. Take Me Higher, ! That's part of the title. That's a great song. It has an awesome hard rocking opening riff. And I noticed, and then I went back and listened to some of the other songs, I noticed that Saiki does actually a bit of vibrato on this song and some of the other songs. So, you know, maybe she's showing, I actually know how to do vibrato. I don't know. But it works very well. I do like, actually, that her singing style is typically sort of crystal clear without lots of bells and whistles. But the vibrato works. It adds a bit of intensity, so that's great. So I sort of feel like I sense a bit of vibrato in her vocal style in this song and on the album as such as well. The lead guitar is really cool. It's just like rock and roll spirit to the lead guitar. Really like that. It has some nice funky bass bits as well. And I'm not saying this as a type of criticism, but the riff in the bridge sounds almost a bit like metalcore. Metalcore was huge in the 2000s, but it's become kind of like something that people in the metal scene now kind of love to hate on. But there were some good things going on in the metalcore world. And I just feel like they just managed to just take you know, metalcore was known for using breakdowns all the time, and it seems like Band-Maid just took, you know, that sort of idea of the metalcore breakdown and just used it in a very, you know, effective way. I don't know, maybe you disagree. I sense a bit of metalcore in the good way, in the breakdown, in the bridge. So if you like metalcore, of course, all metalcore breakdowns are metalcore in the good way. Anyways, so a very good song, one of my other favorite songs in this album, and this is followed by a song called So What? As another hard rocker, and by the way, this is another song I think they didn't write themselves. It has a great hard rocking opening riff, and it's almost kind of aggressive in a way, I would say. And again, this is just my frame of reference. I'm not saying they were inspired by this band, but there's a pre-chorus in this one that just reminds me a bit of an album called Manic Frustration by a band called Trouble. And I don't know if they listened to, or, you know, I think it's Goto who wrote it. I don't know if this person listened to Manic Frustration. I just get a bit of the same vibe as the entire Manic Frustration album in the pre-chorus here. The song has a lot of rock and roll attitude, which I really appreciate, and there's just a cool rock and roll kind of like in-your-face guitar solo. So that's So What? Followed by Time, and that's a song that's also written by someone else. It has a nice riff in the verse. It has a big sing-along chorus, and it's quite melancholic throughout, and a quite catchy song. And I think this is a Miku song as well. Miku has a bit of more of a, her voice is a bit more raw than Saiki. It's not as trained, I think. So there's almost kind of like a sense of vulnerability to Miku's voice when she sings. And that, I think that fits the song quite well. It is very melancholic. It's about how time waits for no one, basically. It has a pretty cool opening too, by the way. Nice opening riff, which is also melancholic. So I think Time is a pretty good song. It's followed by a song called You. It's a cool song that has some twin guitar lead stuff going on. I'm always a sucker for that. It's quite up-tempo. It has an awesome verse, great chorus, and it has a quite sort of more modern metal feel to it. It has a nice atmospheric breakdown as well, I would say. And here again, you just have another just cool, you know, Kanami trained guitar solo. And in this song, I get a bit of an Iron Maiden vibe. Now, the twin guitar lead stuff in the beginning, I think that doesn't sound like Iron Maiden, but Akane, the drummer, uses a beat that is very reminiscent of a type of beat that Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden uses very much. And this beat, I think, adds a bit of an Iron Maiden vibe and a bit of sort of metal feel overall. So that might be one reason why I really like this song, You, as well. Followed by a ballad called Awkward. It's just a nice kind of ballad. It has some nice dynamics, ups and downs. It gets a bit intense and a bit soft. And I really like the riff and the bridge of Awkward. So it's a nice, tasty little ballad, I think. It's followed by a song called Decided by Myself. This is a groovy hard rocker, but it has a mellow verse. There's a lot of that sort of dynamic going on, actually, in this album with intensity and mellowness, and that's makes it very interesting. You know, keeps you on your toes as a listener, I guess. The chorus is nice, and there's a nice groovy bridge. And the last song is called Secret My Lips, and that's another groovy song. It has another nice chorus to it. Some cool double bass drumming going on as well. And there's even like a mellow section with some jazz chords. This is a nice, you know, sort of just breaking things down, just giving you a break. And then the closing part is, I would say, very Japanese, with the you know, the Japanese hard rock, I guess, drumming style. You know, bass drum, snare drum, 1 2 1 2, and then you have hi-hats in between. Except here, Akane does more like, you know, 16ths on the hi-hats, and she actually does some hi-hats. I don't know if she uses, I think she just has one hi-hat, to be honest. But she actually does some pretty cool sort of 16th hi-hat work throughout this entire song, which also makes it nice and dynamic. So overall, it's a more melancholic album. It has some more pop punk elements again. I feel like the highlight, as usual to me, the highlight is Akane's drumming. Akane is what makes this album really dynamic. She adds a lot of the intensity in her amazing drumming. But I would say Kanami's lead guitar work is also a highlight. The Kanami train has arrived. There's some pretty cool bass stuff going on as well. I kind of feel like the vocals have taken the backseat a bit. Not like they're not good or anything, but just seems like there's less focus on the vocals compared to the previous releases. It might be because they're still sort of going more for the more rock belting kind of choruses, although you do have some of the big choruses. So this is definitely, you know, an Akane and Kanami album, in my opinion. There's another album. I love this album. I mean, because it's so long, there are some songs that appeal to me more than others. And I think everyone probably experiences that with this album. There's no bad song on it, for sure. It's more melancholic, as I said. There's a bit more pop punk going on as well on it. So, but, you know, a historic album, the first one where they have the majority of the songwriting credits, and it's still very melodic, kind of melancholic, but really good stuff. So obviously the love fest continues. So that was my take on Just Bring It. Up next is World Domination, with probably my favorite cover art. I really want this on a t-shirt at some point. For now, thanks for watching.